Captain Jai-Ho Park stood at the main window of the research ship Stellar Pioneer, watching the stars. Something wasn't right. The space ahead of them looked different from any other part of space he had seen in his 15 years of space travel. The stars seemed to bend slightly, as if he was looking at them through curved glass. "Captain, you need to see this," Dr. Harin Kim called from her research station. Her voice was steady, but Jai-Ho could hear the excitement in it. He had worked with her long enough to know when she had found something important. Harin pointed to her screen, which showed a series of numbers and graphs. "Our sensors are picking up something strange. The gravity readings don't make sense. According to these numbers, we're near something as heavy as a small moon, but we can't see anything there." Jai-Ho looked at the empty space ahead of them. "Could the sensors be broken?" "No, sir. I've checked them 3 times, Harin said. She pushed her long black hair back from her face, a habit she had when she was thinking hard. "And that's not all. Look at these radiation readings." The ship's computer beeped with a warning. A young officer named Taiwan Lee rushed into the control room. "Captain, the gravity is getting stronger. Whatever's out there, we're getting pulled toward it." Jai-Ho made a quick decision. "Full power to the engines. Keep us at this distance until we know what we're dealing with." The ship's engines roared to life, fighting against the invisible pull. Harin's fingers flew across her keyboard as she collected more data. Her eyes grew wide as she realized what they had found. "Captain, this is impossible," she whispered. "According to these readings, we found a micro black hole. But it's not behaving like any black hole we've ever studied." "Explain," Jai-Ho said, keeping his voice calm even as his heart raced. "Black holes are supposed to destroy everything around them. Their gravity should be ripping us apart right now. But this one..." Harin paused, checking her calculations again. "This one is stable, controlled, almost like it was designed to be this way." Taiwan moved to look at her screen. "That goes against everything we know about physics," he said. "I know," Harin replied. "That's what makes it so exciting." The ship's lights flickered as another gravity wave hit them. Jai-Ho grabbed the edge of his chair to stay steady. "Dr. Kim, I need options. Do we stay and study this thing, or is it too dangerous?" Harin looked at the strange emptiness ahead of them, where the stars twisted in ways they shouldn't. "Captain, I think we've just made the biggest discovery in human history. We have to stay. But there's something else." She pointed to a new set of readings on her screen. "The radiation patterns. They're not random. They're repeating in a way that looks almost like..." "Like what?" Jai-Ho asked. "Like a signal," Harin said quietly. "Captain, I think someone might have built this black hole, and they might be trying to talk to us." Jai-Ho looked at his crew. They were the best Earth had to offer. Scientists and explorers chosen for this mission because they could handle the unknown. Now they faced something that changed everything humans thought they knew about space. "Send a message back to Earth," he ordered. "Tell them we found something impossible. And then, Dr. Kim, let's see if we can figure out what this thing is trying to tell us." As Harin began her work, the stars continued their strange dance in the distance. The Stellar Pioneer hung in space, balanced between the pull of the mysterious black hole and the power of its engines. None of the crew knew it yet, but they were about to change humanity's understanding of the universe forever. 2 weeks had passed since the Stellar Pioneer found the strange black hole. Dr. Harin Kim hadn't slept properly for days. She sat in the ship's research lab, surrounded by screens showing data from their discovery. Something about the numbers kept bothering her. "You need to rest," Taiwan said, bringing her a cup of coffee. "You've been staring at those screens for 16 hours straight." Harin took the coffee but didn't drink it. "Look at this," she said, pointing to a graph. "Every physics book says black holes should give off random radiation. But this one..." She pulled up another screen. "The patterns are perfect, too perfect." Taiwan leaned closer to look at the data. As the ship's quantum mechanics expert, he understood what Harin was showing him. "That's impossible," he said quietly. That's what everyone keeps saying, Herin replied. But what if we're all wrong? What if everything we know about black holes is based on wrong ideas? She stood up and walked to the lab's whiteboard. Her hands shook slightly from too much coffee as she began writing equations. We've always thought black holes were like cosmic vacuum cleaners, destroying everything they touch. But this one is different. It's stable, controlled. Taiwan watched as she filled the board with calculations. What are you suggesting? I think. Herin paused, knowing how crazy she would sound. I think black holes aren't destructive by nature. I think they can be controlled. And I think someone out there already knows how to do it. Just then, Captain Jeho walked into the lab. He looked at the whiteboard covered in Herin's equations. Dr. Kim, we just got a message from Earth. The International Science Board wants our full report in 24 hours. Herin turned to face him. Captain, I can't send this data yet. Not until I'm sure. They'll think I'm crazy. You have to send something, Jeho said. This discovery is too big to keep secret. Herin looked back at her equations. Then I'll send them my theory too. All of it. 3 days later, Herin sat in the ship's communication room, facing a screen filled with the faces of Earth's top scientists. She had just finished presenting her theory. This is ridiculous, one scientist said. Dr. Kim, are you suggesting that everything we know about black holes is wrong? Not wrong, Herin replied calmly. Just incomplete. Our instruments show this black hole is artificial. Someone made it, which means someone found a way to control gravity itself. Another scientist laughed. Next you'll tell us aliens built it. I don't know who built it, Herin said, but the math doesn't lie. Look at the data yourselves. The scientists began arguing among themselves. Herin could see she was losing them. Then Tae-won stepped into view of the camera. I've checked Dr. Kim's calculations, he said. Her theory explains everything we've seen. We can't ignore this just because it challenges our old ideas. After the call ended, Herin sat quietly, staring at the blank screen. They think I'm wrong, she said. They're scared, Jeho replied. He had watched the whole meeting. You're telling them to question everything they believe about physics. That's not easy. Suddenly, the ship's alarms began blaring. Taiwan rushed to check the sensors. His face went pale. The black hole, he said. It's changing, and it's sending out a new signal. Herin ran to her station, her tired eyes now wide awake. As she looked at the new data, she realized she hadn't gone far enough with her theory. The truth was even stranger than she had imagined. The black hole wasn't just artificial. Someone was using it to try to make contact. The Stellar Pioneer's control room was silent except for the steady beeping of instruments. Everyone watched as Herin and Taiwan worked to decode the signal coming from the black hole. There's a clear pattern, Herin said, pointing to her screen. It repeats every 12 seconds. These can't be random waves. Captain Jeho stood behind them, watching the strange symbols appear on their screens. Can we respond? I think so, Taiwan said. He adjusted some controls on his panel. The black hole responds to gravitational waves. If we use our ship's gravity generators, we might be able to send a simple message back. Herin typed quickly, programming a basic response. Just a copy of the pattern they had received. She looked at Jeho. Ready to transmit, Captain. Jeho took a deep breath. This could be humanity's first contact with an alien civilization. Send it, he ordered. They waited. For 3 long minutes, nothing happened. Then the black hole's radiation pattern changed completely. Look, Herin pointed at her screen. New symbols were appearing, different from the first set. They're responding. Taiwan studied the new pattern. It's like they're adjusting their message, making it simpler. I think they're trying to establish basic communication. Over the next few hours, Herin and Taiwan worked to understand the alien messages. They started with simple mathematical sequences, The kind of patterns any advanced civilization would recognize. It's working, Herin said excitedly. They're teaching us their language through math, just like we would do if we were trying to talk to an alien species. Suddenly, a new kind of signal came through. The ship's computers began processing it automatically, turning it into a visual image. Everyone gasped as a figure appeared on their main screen. It looked almost human, but not quite. Its skin had a slight blue tint, and its eyes were larger than normal. When it spoke, its words were translated by the ship's computers, which had learned enough of the alien language to understand basic concepts. "We are the Void Dwellers," the figure said. "We control the space between spaces. You have found one of our transport nodes." "Transport nodes?" Jaiho asked. "You mean the black hole is artificial? You created it?" "Yes," the figure replied. "We are surprised. Your species is younger than we expected to find studying our network. We have been watching your attempts to understand our node. Your scientist." The figure paused, looking at Herin. "You came very close to understanding its true nature." Herin stepped forward. "Then I was right. Black holes aren't naturally destructive. They can be controlled." The figure, which called itself Echo, made a gesture that might have been a smile. "Your understanding of space and gravity is incomplete, but you learn quickly." Taiwan joined the conversation. "Will you teach us?" Echo's expression became serious. "Teaching comes with responsibility. We must first know if your species is ready for such knowledge. There are tests that must be passed." "What kind of tests?" Jaiho asked. Before Echo could answer, the ship's warning systems activated. Red lights flashed as new data appeared on their screens. "Captain," one of the crew members called out, "we're detecting massive energy readings from the sun. Something's wrong." Echo's image flickered. "Ah," it said, "it seems your first test has arrived sooner than expected. We will watch with great interest to see how you handle this crisis." The screen went dark, leaving the crew of the Stellar Pioneer facing both the greatest opportunity and the greatest threat humanity had ever encountered. The next day, a new figure appeared on the Stellar Pioneer's main screen. This Void Dweller looked different from Echo. It had taken a more human-like appearance, wearing what looked like a formal Earth-style suit. It introduced itself as Su-Min Choi, the council speaker for the Void Dwellers. "We have chosen this form and name to make you more comfortable," Su-Min explained. "We have studied your cultures extensively." Captain Jiho stood straight, trying to look confident despite his concerns about the solar readings. "Why are you testing us? What do you want to see?" Su-Min's expression remained neutral. "Your species is young, but you have already begun to understand concepts that took other civilizations millennia to grasp. This makes you interesting and potentially dangerous." Herin stepped forward. "Dangerous? We're just trying to learn." "Knowledge without wisdom is always dangerous," Su-Min replied. "Your scientist Einstein once said that everything is relative. He was more correct than he knew. What you call physical laws are merely guidelines. They can be changed if you know how." Taiwan frowned. "Changed? That's impossible. The laws of physics are constant." Su-Min made a gesture, and suddenly the gravity in the room shifted. Everyone found themselves floating gently upward, then back down again. "Impossible?" Su-Min asked. "Your understanding of gravity is like a child's understanding of mathematics. You know enough to count, but not enough to solve complex equations." The ship's alarms began blaring again. A crew member called out from his station. "Captain, the solar activity is increasing. At this rate, it will create a massive flare within 24 hours. The flare will interact with our transport node," Su-Min explained calmly. "If the node becomes unstable, it could destroy your solar system." Jaiho felt his heart race, but kept his voice steady. "Can you help us prevent this?" "We could," Su-Min said, "but we will not. This is your test. Show us how humans solve problems." Show us if you deserve to join the galactic community. Harin stepped forward. You're willing to risk an entire solar system just to test us. We are willing to let you prove yourselves, Sumin corrected. Your species has great potential, but potential without proof is meaningless. You have 24 hours to stabilize the node. Or, Sumin paused. Well, failure would make the question of joining our community irrelevant. How can we stabilize something we barely understand? Ta-One asked. Sumin's expression softened slightly. You understand more than you think. Your Dr. Kim's theories about black holes, they were surprisingly close to the truth, perhaps closer than she realizes. Harin's eyes widened. The patterns in the radiation, they're not just communication, are they? They're control signals. Interesting observation, Sumin said. I cannot confirm or deny, but I will say this. Humans have one quality we have rarely seen in other species. You don't just observe the universe. You imagine how it could be different. Sometimes, imagination is more valuable than knowledge. The image flickered and disappeared, leaving the crew in silence. The gentle hum of the ship's engines seemed louder than usual as everyone processed what they had heard. Captain Jeho looked at his crew. Dr. Kim, Dr. Lee, you have 24 hours to save Earth. What do you need? Harin and Ta-One looked at each other, then at their captain. Everything, Harin said. We need every bit of computing power, every sensor, and every crazy idea anyone on this ship can think of. Because we're about to try something that's never been done before. We're going to try to control a black hole, Ta-One added. And we're going to have to break everything we think we know about physics to do it. Time was running out on the Stellar Pioneer. The ship's sensors showed the growing solar storm that threatened to destabilize the black hole. Captain Jeho watched the main screen as waves of solar energy moved toward them. 18 hours left, he said quietly. Harin and Ta-One had turned the ship's main laboratory into their command center. Screens covered every wall, showing different aspects of the black hole's behavior. Empty coffee cups littered their desks. The solar flare will hit the black hole like a hammer hitting a bell, Harin explained to the captain. It will make it vibrate in ways it wasn't designed to handle. Can we move it? Jeho asked. Ta-One shook his head. It's too massive. Even our strongest engines couldn't move something this heavy. The door opened, and a young engineer named Yuna entered the lab. She had been quiet during most of the mission, but now she spoke up. What if we don't need to move it? What if we could shield it instead? Harin looked up from her calculations. The energy levels are too high. No physical shield would work. Not a physical shield, Yuna said. She walked to the main screen and brought up a diagram. A gravity shield, like the ones the Void Dwellers must use to keep their transport nodes stable. The room went quiet. Harin stared at Yuna's diagram. That could work, but we'd need to understand exactly how the black hole maintains its stability. Suddenly, all the screens in the lab flickered. Sumin appeared again, watching them with interest. 16 hours remain. Are you making progress? Jeho stepped forward. We need more information. You say this is a test, but you're asking us to solve a problem without giving us the tools to understand it. Understanding is a tool, Sumin replied. You have already observed our transport node for weeks. All the information you need exists in your data. The question is, can you see it? The image disappeared. Harin jumped up from her chair. Wait, that's it. The data we collected, we were looking at it wrong. We thought the patterns were just communication, but they're more than that. They're showing us how the black hole maintains itself. She rushed to her computer and began pulling up old readings. Ta-One joined her, his eyes widening as he understood what she was seeing. The radiation patterns, he said. They're like a heartbeat. The black hole pulses in a specific way to keep itself stable. Warning alarms blared through the ship. The solar storm was getting stronger. The black hole's own energy patterns began to change, becoming more erratic. Captain, a crew member called out, We're getting reports from Earth. The solar storm is affecting communications across the planet. Power grids are failing. Jai-Ho looked at his team. How long until you can have a solution? The math is incredibly complex, Herin said. We need to understand exactly how these pulses work, then figure out how to replicate them ourselves. Even with the ship's computers, it could take days. We have 15 hours, Jai-Ho reminded her. Yuna spoke up again. Maybe we don't need to understand everything. The Void Dweller said humans are good at imagining new solutions. What if we stop trying to copy their technology and create something new instead? Herin and Taiwan looked at each other. A spark of hope appeared in their tired eyes. Captain, Herin said, we need to try something dangerous, something that could either save us all or make everything much worse. Jai-Ho looked at the images of the approaching solar storm. They were out of options. Do it, he ordered. Whatever you're thinking, do it now. Herin stood in front of the ship's main computer, watching as Yuna explained her idea. The young engineer had drawn a simple diagram on the lab's whiteboard. The black hole is like a spinning top, Yuna said, drawing a circle. It stays stable as long as it spins at the right speed. The Void Dwellers use complex signals to keep it spinning perfectly. But what if we could do it a simpler way? Taiwan leaned forward in his chair. What do you mean? When a top starts to wobble, what do you do? Yuna asked. You don't try to control every part of its spin. You just give it a gentle push at the right moment. Herin's eyes widened. Instead of copying the Void Dweller's complex control system, we create a simpler one that works with the black hole's natural movements. Exactly, Yuna said. She moved to one of the computer stations and began typing. We can use the ship's gravity generators to create pulses, like pushing a swing at just the right moment to keep it going. Captain Jai-Ho watched them work. How long will it take to build this system? The hardware is already here, Yuna said. We just need to reprogram the gravity generators. But, she paused, looking uncertain. But what? Jai-Ho asked. We'll have to get very close to the black hole, Taiwan explained. Much closer than we are now. If we make a mistake, the ship could be pulled in. The ship's alarms sounded again. The solar storm was getting stronger. They had less than 10 hours left. Do it, Jai-Ho ordered. Start programming the system. I'll handle moving the ship. Herin and Yuna worked together, writing new code for the gravity generators. Taiwan checked their calculations, making sure every number was perfect. They couldn't afford any mistakes. Suddenly, Su-Min appeared on their screens again. Your approach is unexpected, the Void Dweller said. You are not trying to copy our methods. We can't, Herin replied, not looking up from her work. We don't have enough time to understand your technology, so we're doing it our way instead. Your way is dangerous, Su-Min warned. If you make even a small error, you will destabilize the node completely. The destruction will be immediate. Then we won't make an error, Yuna said confidently, though her hands shook slightly as she typed. Su-Min watched them for a moment longer. Fascinating. You choose the most difficult path, yet you show no fear. We will continue to observe. The image disappeared. Jai-Ho looked at his crew. How close do we need to get? Taiwan checked the calculations. Within 1,000 kilometers of the event horizon. Any further and our gravity pulses won't be strong enough. That's almost suicide distance, one of the crew members whispered. Then we better get it right the first time, Jai-Ho said. He sat in the captain's chair and took manual control of the ship. Program ready. 5 more minutes, Herin said. Her fingers flew across the keyboard as she entered the final commands. Make it 3, Jai-Ho replied. The storm is speeding up. Through the main window, they could see the black hole clearly now. It looked like a perfect circle of darkness, with starlight bending around its edges. Beautiful, but deadly. Program loaded, Yuna announced. Gravity generators reconfigured. We're ready. Jai-Ho took a deep breath. This is either the smartest or the craziest thing humans have ever tried. Everyone ready? His crew nodded. They were about to attempt something no human had ever done before. They were going to try to tame a black hole using nothing but human ingenuity and hope. The Stellar Pioneer moved slowly toward the black hole. Through the main window, the crew could see the strange way it bent light around its edges. Captain Jai-Ho's hands were steady on the controls, but sweat showed on his forehead. Distance to event horizon, 2,000 kilometers, Taiwan reported. His voice was quiet but clear in the tense silence. Harin and Yuna sat at their stations, watching the readings from their newly programmed gravity system. Red warning lights flashed across their screens as the ship moved closer to the black hole. "Captain," Harin said, "the solar storm will reach us in 45 minutes. We need to start now." Jai-Ho nodded. "Take us in. All crew members, secure yourselves. This could get rough." The ship's engines hummed louder as they pushed against the black hole's pull. At this distance, they could feel its power trying to draw them in. The metal walls of the ship creaked under the strain. 1,500 kilometers, Taiwan called out. Suddenly, all their screens flickered. Su-Min appeared, looking concerned. "You are too close. No ship has ever survived at this distance from an active transport node." "We're about to change that," Jai-Ho replied calmly, "unless you want to help." Su-Min shook their head. "We cannot. This is your test, but know that if you fail, there will be no chance for rescue." 1,200 kilometers, Taiwan announced. Yuna's hands moved across her control panel. Gravity generators at full power, ready to begin pulse sequence. The ship shuddered. Outside, the stars seemed to dance as the black hole's gravity bent their light in strange patterns. Warning alarms blared as the ship's systems struggled against the intense forces. 1,000 kilometers, Taiwan said. "We're at minimum safe distance." Jai-Ho looked at his crew. This was the moment. Either their plan would work, or they would all die. There would be no second chance. "Begin the sequence," he ordered. Harin and Yuna worked together, their fingers flying over their keyboards. The ship's gravity generators began to pulse, sending carefully timed waves of energy toward the black hole. "First pulse sent," Harin reported, waiting for response. For a moment, nothing happened. Then their sensors lit up with new readings. "The black hole's spin is changing," Taiwan called out. "It's responding to our pulses." Yuna adjusted the timing. "Like pushing a swing," she said quietly. "We just need to keep the rhythm perfect." The ship rocked as the first waves of the solar storm reached them. Outside, space itself seemed to ripple with energy. "Storm intensity increasing," Taiwan reported. "The black hole's stability is dropping." "Increase pulse strength," Harin ordered. "We need to match the storm's energy." The ship's engines screamed as they fought to keep their position. The gravity pulses were draining their power reserves quickly. "Power at 60%, a crew member called out. "We're burning through our reserves too fast." "We don't have a choice," Jai-Ho said. "Keep going." Through the window, they could see the black hole beginning to change. Its perfect circle was becoming distorted as the solar storm's energy hit it. Their sensors showed its spin becoming more erratic. "This isn't working fast enough," Harin said, her voice tense. "The storm is too strong." Yuna looked up from her station, her eyes bright with a new idea. "What if we don't fight the storm? What if we use it instead?" "What do you mean?" Jai-Ho asked. "The storm is pure energy," Yuna explained quickly. "If we adjust our pulse timing just right, we could use its power to help stabilize the black hole. Like using the wind to help push that swing." Harin's eyes widened as she understood. "It's brilliant, but one wrong move." "We're out of options," Jai-Ho said. "Do it." The crew of the Stellar Pioneer held their breath as Yuna began to reprogram their gravity pulses. They were about to attempt something that even the Void Dwellers had never tried. The solar storm roared around the Stellar Pioneer. Inside the ship, Yuna's fingers moved quickly across her control panel as she adjusted their gravity pulses to match the storm's rhythm. Power at 40%, a crew member reported. 30 minutes of power remaining. Harin watched the readings from the black hole carefully. The spin is starting to stabilize. Yuna's plan is working. Through the main window, they could see the storm's energy flowing around the black hole in beautiful patterns of light. Instead of fighting against the storm, they were now working with it, using its power to help restore the black hole's natural rhythm. "Look at these readings," Taiwan said with amazement. "The black hole isn't just becoming stable again. It's becoming more stable than before." Suddenly, all their screens lit up with a bright blue light. Sumin appeared, but this time they weren't alone. Several other Void Dwellers stood with them, all watching the humans with great interest. "Impossible," one of the Void Dwellers said. "They're using the storm's own energy to power the stabilization process. We never considered such a simple solution." "Simple?" Jiho asked, managing a small smile despite the tension. "This doesn't feel very simple right now." "Your method is simple," Sumin explained, "but brilliant. You saw what we did not. Sometimes the greatest storms can become the greatest sources of strength." The ship shuddered as another wave of solar energy passed through them. But now, instead of threatening the black hole, the energy was helping to restore its balance. "Power at 20%, the crew member called out. "But the black hole's stability is at 95% and rising." Harin checked her readings again. "The storm is almost past us. Just a few more minutes." They watched as the last waves of the solar storm flowed around them. The black hole's spin became perfectly steady, its shape returning to the perfect circle they had first discovered. "Stability at 100%, Taiwan announced. "We did it." The crew began to cheer, but Sumin raised a hand for silence. "You have done more than save your solar system," they said. "You have shown us something new. In all our centuries of maintaining the transport network, we never thought to use natural forces to help power our nodes. Sometimes the best solutions are the ones right in front of us." Yuna said quietly. Sumin nodded. "Indeed, your species has a unique way of seeing problems. You do not just solve them. You transform them into opportunities." The other Void Dwellers nodded in agreement. "We have made our decision," Sumin continued. "Humanity has proved itself worthy not just of joining our community, but of helping to lead it into the future." Captain Jiho stood straighter. "What does that mean exactly?" "It means," Sumin said with what looked like a smile, "that we have much to learn from each other. This transport node will become a permanent connection between Earth and the galactic community, and your crew will help us redesign our entire network using your new stabilization method." Harin looked at her fellow crew members with pride. "We still have so much to learn about black holes," she said. "Yes," Sumin agreed, "but now we will learn together. The myths you once believed about black holes were just the beginning. The true mysteries of space are far more wonderful than anyone imagined." As the Stellar Pioneer's crew began their journey back to Earth, they knew they had changed the course of human history. They had proved that the greatest power in the universe wasn't technology or knowledge, but the human ability to imagine new possibilities. The black hole hung steady behind them, no longer a myth or a mystery, but a doorway to humanity's future among the stars.